Good afternoon, everybody. This is Hamza.
And this is David.
And this is Intrinsic Motivation from a Homie's Perspective. And always great to see everybody here on Sunday. I'm starting to get some really good feedback from everybody. This is our 14th podcast, so it looks like we're getting some little traction now.
Good.
Yeah. So I haven't seen you in a couple of days. Has anything happened to you spiritually that you'd like to share?
Sleep, and more sleep. That's still been, I think, from our last one. That was a common theme, and it's not going away.
Yeah.
So that hyper sleep is definitely coming up. I need to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I did speak with Avery earlier in the week. We're going to have her on again.
Okay.
Because we actually have finalized the date to have a hypersleep weekend.
Okay.
And we found a location. It's going to be really good. Really excited about that. So if you're going through a lot of sleep, you're just doing a lot of downloading.
Yeah.
Something, right?
Something's going on. It's like I can't get enough of it. So.
Yeah. I've actually felt that way. I was talking about it a little bit off cam, where we were I had gone to my he had a jazz ceremony on Friday, and it was my first time of the season being in the sun for like 3 straight hours, right? Like I got the farmer's tan and all. And I tried to do regular work as, a regular day, and I just could not get out of the bed. I was like, am I in the middle of a hypersleep?
Yeah.
And it was on a level where I wanted to stop and try to force myself to get up.
Yeah.
And then I knew to kind of put that resistance away and process what I needed to process. Mm-hmm. And that turned out to be really good, and I was more so effective after the sleep. And so, I think that collectively that we're going through some changes that maybe at the end of the summer we'll look back and say, wow, remember beforehand? And attribute it to hypersleep. But today we're not talking about hypersleep. Today we are actually talking about higher brain living. And what was really interesting is Joanne, who we've mentioned before in the podcast from Horizon Center, and I had gone to Phoenix and Dragon, which is a local metaphysical bookstore here in Atlanta, and we were invited to an event there. They were talking about higher brain living. And it was really interesting because we're always open to modalities, and the guest that we have is open to modalities. So I'm really excited to introduce Crystal Lentjes, who's going to give us more information about higher brain living. So welcome to the podcast, Crystal.
Hello, Hamza. Hello, David.
It's always a pleasure to see you.
Yeah.
How's it going?
It's great. I'm glad to be here.
Sure.
Glad to have you.
There is a bit of familiarity here in this podcast because Crystal and I have known each other through Horizon Center, but the way we like to always start with our podcast is our awakening moment. So we always look at, was there a defining moment in your life where you were going in one direction and it just totally changed 360 that bring you today? Not necessarily that it had to be really bad, but if you look back, you're like, wow, my life took a totally different change than I ever expected, and I attribute it to this.
You mean as far as spiritual awakening?
Yeah.
Yes, as far as spiritual awakening.
What's interesting about that is that I feel like I've always been on this path. Mm-hmm. Even as a little kid, I remember when they would have the books, and they'd bring in all the books, and you had to go pick all the books. Mm-hmm. Like you needed to go pick 3 books. Mm-hmm. I would pick the ghost book, the weird book, whatever weird thing was there. Mm-hmm. So I was always interested in this. I knew that I had a gift at 6 years old. I would tell my mother who was on the phone. And then that was sort of, pushed down. That was not good. And then at 13, I had another sort of awakening. I had a friend, and we would do telepathy.
Okay.
And she was very psychic, so we communicated without talking.
Okay.
And so since then, I've just known that this has been my path. But there have been points when I've been more into it and less into it, right? It gets scary, and then you pull back,
a little bit,
and then you go back. But it's funny that you had the book Illusions, because I read this as a teenager, and I was like, oh, yeah. It's like I couldn't get enough of it. It was just one of those. So this was sort of a defining moment.
Absolutely.
When I knew, okay.
Well, just real quick, just to talk about that. I was a teenager the first time Joanne gave me that book.
Yeah.
And this is what I did. I started reading, these pages right here. I don't even think I finished this. Maybe I finished this, and I was like, that stupid book. And I just threw it down. What is he giving me this book for? And I don't know how long later, maybe within a year, I had other experiences with her that kind of opened everything up. I was like, wow. And then I went, and she had a big wicker basket full of books, and I went and got them and just poured them in my room, and I would stay up read. And when I picked this up again, I started reading it, and I didn't put it down until I finished that night. I read it in one night.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a completely different book. I mean, I had changed. The book hadn't changed. But, yeah, I went from, like, what the hell is this, to I couldn't put it down. Yeah.
And we're referencing Illusions by Richard Bach for those that are unfamiliar. It is a really good entry. I think the book was in the late 60s, early 70s when it was actually written the first time. I know it's been reissued.
I think it was 70s, I think. But
yeah, but really good. We'll put that in the description for people to check it out. It would be really good if you don't have that in your library to go ahead and add that. Yeah. So anyway, there was a lot of back and forth. There was, this is interesting, this is scary, I'm going to stop. You were kind of dancing. It was kind of a dance, if you will, right? And so today, what is your opinion of dancing? Is it still, obviously you've grown and you have different modalities and awareness, but do you also feel like you're trying to push the envelope as far as, I want to push it to see how far it can go before it gets scary again, or are you just more so open to all possibilities?
That's a great question, Hamza. I think where I am now is, I was telling someone the other day, I've got a foot firmly planted in corporate because I work at UPS in HR, so I'm like the corporate HR lady. And then I have a foot firmly planted in the metaphysical, but I've learned to accept who I am to the point of, yeah, I love doing meditation. I'm a hypnotherapist. I'm a Reiki master. I'm 7-ray healer. You know, we've got all these modalities and all these things, and now I'm into Higher Brain Living. I am comfortable with the fact that I'm a straight-up weirdo.
Certified.
Certified, man. She has the plaque, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm proud of it. That's cool. I like that.
We're the homies. We don't even have the plaque, man. I guess we got to keep striving and get the plaque. Certifiable.
That's funny.
So it's interesting. So the fact that I really love is that you didn't stop, and so you realize that their knowledge is infinite, right? And what I'm personally seeing is that there's a huge difference between knowledge and experiment. So if you are not experiencing, or until you experience something, then you can really, really develop more so as opposed to reading a book and regurgitating, right? And so what brought you into Higher Brain Living?
Well, I had heard about it. It was at Horizon, when Horizon Center was there. And Ann Ferguson, who is my facilitator, she was doing a demo there. So I got into it 2015, and I did the whole 22 sessions that you do, and I really thought it was great, and it kind of was like, oh, I feel, it's sort of like one of those baseline things, like you do your, because when you get into it, I'm sorry, I don't want to ramble, once you learn how to do it for yourself, then you do that and then you meditate, or you do that and you do whatever else you need to do, go about your day. But I noticed for me that it helped me get deeper into my meditation, and so that was like, oh, okay, this is cool. And it has enhanced my life. I feel more confident. I feel more bliss. I feel happier. It's just all of those good feelings. It's because you're bypassing this lower brain, the reptilian brain, and you're going to the prefrontal cortex, which is, this is what's highlighted when the monks, the Tibetan monks who have meditated for 30 years for 6 hours a day, this is what's highlighted when you do an EEG. And that's what we're tapping into by Higher Brain Living. So once I did it in 2015, I thought it was great, and I really didn't think about it again. And then I got invited to another event where I thought, well, I'm just going to go support Ann. But it was really this event to become a facilitator. And I was like, I hadn't thought about it. But something really felt right just at the core of it. So I jumped on board, and I went to the 2-week training. It was April, May, and now I'm ready to rock. I'm ready to go.
Wow.
Now, let's back up for a second, because you said that there are 22 sessions. So if you can kind of let us know, what is there a potential protocol that actually happens where you can become a facilitator, or you feel like you've reached a level that you can do it on your own?
It's sort of both. There is a protocol, and there's 22 sessions, and you get a guidebook, and you go through the 22 sessions, and you also do not really affirmations, they call them resolutions and goals, and so I want to say it's not super regimented, but they do want you to go through the process. But around session 5, you learn how to facilitate yourself into your own higher brain. And so then that's your practice daily, to do your own facilitation into your higher brain.
Okay. Awesome. So, being that you've had all these other modalities, and this is probably a separation question, and I'm really trying to be more encompassing as I move forward in life, of seeing how everything connects, but this is a separation question. So, after I say all that, right? So, did you see, I'm sure there was a group of people that had gone through these sessions, right? And you have different levels. Everybody comes with their own bag of experiences. Do you see different levels as far as resistance to accepting it? Like, what is this higher brain living to actually accepting it? Like you said, by the 5th you can do it on your own, but have you seen levels of the growth that you can say episode 6 was a lot better than, or episode 20 was a lot better than episode 6?
Yes.
Okay.
It builds, so it's sort of like when you first start working out and you don't have that muscle memory yet to do it, like rowing even. Like you don't have that muscle memory until you've done it a couple times.
Right.
Same is true with higher brain living. You're training your body to get into that higher brain, and it's not used to it. So, the first few sessions I had a couple of headaches, but that's just your body integrating the lower and the higher, like integrating that new experience. And after I went to training, we had so many sessions there. I would say that the sessions that I had at training were better, more blissful, more intense, more like wow.
Okay.
Than the first 22.
Oh, okay. The training was after the 22 sessions.
Yes.
Okay. What session would you say of the 22 that you got to and you're like, okay, I'm all in?
Probably like 3.
After the third?
Yeah.
Okay, the third.
And then you're like, oh, things feel different.
Yeah.
So I think it's hard for people too, because it is sort of an expensive program. That they get to 2 sessions and they might be feeling good, but then they're like, oh, well, I'm not really feeling it. It's like I would tell anyone, just hang in there.
Hang in there, yeah.
And also I would say do it every week, because I was trying to split it up because of money. I was like trying to do it like every other week, and I feel like that slowed my progress a little bit.
Okay.
So I would say do it every week, no matter what, and then you're going to really see the progress.
Okay. So that's what you did. You did it every week for 22 weeks?
I did it like every other week.
Every other week.
But now I'm doing it every week.
Now you do it every
I'm doing another session. Yeah.
Okay.
Let me ask you, being a type A person, right? So I have to push the envelope, right?
Sure.
So you did it. The suggestion is every week.
Yeah.
But what if you have a type A person that's like, I want to do it 22 days? Is that possible?
You mean 22 days straight?
Yes, do it 22 days straight. Right.
I think you could do it.
Okay.
Technically.
Right.
But I think it would probably fry your wires.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure. Well, talk about pushing the limit.
Without even have done it, it would seem like it would be better to do a session, let that integrate.
Right.
And then before you do the next one, or as opposed to 22 in a row, wow.
Yeah,
it probably would fry yourself to some extent.
Well, I'm going to stay there, right? For the podcast, and for me, right? I like to push the envelope. So let's just say, as far as your processing, right? So you have that week, and you have 7 days, right? And then you can tell by day 6, I need another session. But is it like a gradual decline? Like you could say during day 4, it's dropping, and day 5 is dropping, day 6 is dropping, and now I need to go.
It's not dropping if you continue to do your practice of your higher brain living on your own.
Okay.
Then it just feels better, like you're priming the pump. And then when you get that session, you're like, ah.
Right.
Like when you saw me on the table, it was like there's this flying feeling.
Oh, we're going to get to that.
Yeah.
Trust me, we're going to get to that. But I want to save that for a second.
Okay, sure.
So, going through other modalities, because I believe you are EFT practitioner as well.
Yes, I am.
So emotional freedom technique, which is tapping for those that are unfamiliar, and you're tapping the meridians, right? And just watching some of the videos in the Higher Brain Learning, it looks similar to that. And so since you have experience in both, do they complement each other, or do you no longer tap?
Oh, I still tap.
Okay.
And I think they also complement each other. I think that it's a baseline that you could do your higher brain living, and then you could tap, and or whatever you want to do. I love to do it in the morning and then meditate. I feel like it brings me deeper.
Okay. So it sounds like for those that love Abraham like I do,
oh yeah,
Abraham's always like get into the vortex and then do this and then.
Yes.
So you're saying that higher brain could be your foundation for your vortex, if you will,
Absolutely.
and then whatever the other modality is. So be it EFT, be it meditation, be it yoga, be it fill in the blank, higher brain learning is the foundation.
Living, yeah.
Higher brain living, thank you.
In fact, Dr. Cotton, who invented higher brain living, his wife is a yoga teacher.
Okay.
They're about to bring higher brain living to yoga studios and kind of meld it, because she has a yoga that she's worked out for once you get yourself into your higher brain, then you do this yoga.
Right.
And we did a couple sessions of yoga at the retreat, and it was amazing too. So those two work great hand in hand. Also, he's going to have a meditation coming out as well.
Okay.
He calls it source code meditation.
Okay.
So all of these things work together. But yeah, I love that you bring back Abraham, because I also still love Abraham.
Right.
And he says get into that vortex, which it is to me. It's like getting into your vortex.
Do you see, prior to higher brain living, that some argument for Abraham is, I can't get into the vortex, right? Like it's like Abraham's taunting you, right? I can't. I have everything in escrow, but I can't get to the vortex. And you're saying that this potentially could bridge that gap.
Yes. You're bringing the physical with you, because as much as I love Abraham Hicks' information, and I listen to it daily, it's very mental. Right? So you're in your head. This is bridging, it's bringing it all together. Like it's marrying that. Just like you have a better meditation after you've done yoga.
Right. Yeah.
When you're in your higher brain, you can get to the vortex.
Right.
And you can understand these concepts that Abraham's talking about much better.
Awesome.
How much would you say, you talked about the lower brain and then the
higher brain.
Higher or frontal?
Prefrontal cortex.
Prefrontal cortex. How much is that associated the frontal with the pineal and the pituitary? Is that part of it?
I think that it probably activates it. I can't tell you for sure. I'm not a doctor, but I would guess that it does, because I have noticed that my sensitive spidey sense, if you will, has sort of also increased by doing this practice. And a lot of other people have had some healing miracles through doing this. We had a guy who was with us, and he had very bad diabetes. Like his blood sugar, I think he said, was like 700 or something. Really crazy. Yeah. And that was a daily thing for him. And his blood sugar readings went down, and all he was doing was higher brain living. Now, it's funny, the synchronicity, he also got a roommate who is from Sweden, and he's into raw food, and so he was making this guy, Brad, drink good smoothies. Like, he was also, so it was synchronicitous that he also had someone who was helping him with the food thing.
Nutrition level,
But it was amazing. He was working some miracles in his life as well. I think it's all involved. It's all connected.
Sure. At this point, we want to make a disclaimer that you should always check with your medical practitioner before doing any additional modalities or what have you. I don't want the FDA or anybody to come shut us down because we're talking.
We're not doctors, and we don't play one on podcasts either.
That's right. And that would kind of go into another tangent about his roommate that was from Sweden. Unfortunately, those outside the United States have a better diet than we do. And I know that overseas that there's a huge push to put or label genetically modified organisms and all that, whereas in the States it's a reluctance just due to relationships with corporate and what have you. So, I don't want to go into that type of tangent, but it seems like in combination that did help this individual out. That was actually where I wanted to go, because when you were talking about yoga, I also thought of like a Pilates or something in dealing with someone dealing with injury. So have you seen that implemented as well?
Yes, actually that's another synchronicity. My roommate was Leslie Clayton at the facilitator training that we went to, and she's now an advanced facilitator. She owns the Pilates studio that's right next to Phoenix and Dragon, And so she is going to bring Higher Brain Living to
For
the Pilates people,
wow.
right? So there's some crossover there.
Awesome. And I know that she was in that
at the demo.
At the demo that we saw. I guess we're going to jump into that now, have people waiting. But before I do, I'm also just thinking of just alternative modalities. So we're talking about, yoga. We're talking about Pilates. I would think that there would be some level of chiropractic care, potentially, as far as all these communities speaking together. I always like, fortunately, unfortunately, in Third Dimension, we think linearly. And if you're thinking Higher Brain Living, it's kind of outside, or living, it's outside of being linear. But it seems like you can add the linear aspect where do Higher Brain Living, then do yoga, then do Pilates or chiropractic, potentially.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Dr. Cotton started as a chiropractor.
Really? Oh, okay. So we're throwing you a lot of softballs, apparently.
There's a lot of chiropractors that are interested in this as well.
Really? Okay. So as a business person, I always look at how I can add additional services, and so people that potentially listen to this podcast may be in those professions, and it's something that they can look into. So, all right, well, let's jump right in. So, I, for one, I do have to say this, that I love the movie When Harry Met Sally. So, in Harry Met Sally, you just saw, and for those that haven't seen it, it's a classic. You really need to see it. See it with your girlfriend or your wife. You know, you'll make up if you guys are arguing or what have you. But you see people in their different different status in life, right? So you saw them when they were really young adults, and then not giving it away, but as they get older, you just see different, how they've grown, right? And so I saw that because seeing you and knowing you prior to this demo, and I knew all the different, or most of the modalities that you do. I know that you're a reader as well. And then seeing you through the demo, it just seemed like it was graduation, if you will, right? Like there was, you were glowing. I saw your aura was just like, it was actually kind of in our face, like it was just blowing out. Like, people that have a short aura, right, it's kind of, they're working on some things. But for you, it was just like, wow, hey, new kid, new toy, and you were smiled. I think Joanne shared that as well, because as a teacher, she's seen you grow. And so, not being a teacher, I've seen you grow also, right? So, tell us what's the process of going through a demo? So, what is a demo like?
Well, the live demos for Higher Brain Living are to give anyone who hasn't seen it a taste of what it is. And basically, Higher Brain Living is a gentle touch technique that's very similar to acupressure, and it flips the switch in the body that activates the higher brain, which is also known as the prefrontal cortex. So why do we want this? We want it because that part is like our executive part of our brain, and it can help us make clear decisions, it can regulate emotions, it can help us make deeper connections in our relationships, and it opens up your spirituality. So in the demo, you're actually just seeing the physicality of it. The actual demonstration of what you might experience if you came to a Higher Brain Living session.
Gotcha. Now, in the demo, it was 10 minutes, and so on the videos on YouTube and such, it's 10 minutes. But an actual session is, 45 minutes or an hour?
45 minutes.
So in the 10 minutes, it seems like so much is happening.
Right. It's going really fast. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
So with the 45 minutes, can you tell the difference between, like, what is it, if someone can picture this is what happens at the 10-minute, maybe if they're in that moment, they're actually not enjoying it because they're like, I'm trying to put demarcation lines at the 10-minute mark, the 20-minute mark, the 40-minute mark. But it seems like there's a progression through a whole session. So what is it like getting started, and what is it like after you finish, if you can share your experience?
Well, when you're having the session, they're giving you a little bit of time to integrate in between the upper and the lower and the touching technique. And also, as you're getting into the session, you'll just you'll feel like stress moving out of your body, just sort of sloughing that off, if you will. Like sometimes you'll see people have jerky movements or whatever kind of movements. Sometimes I have like jerky movements, and then it's just at a slower pace than a demo. A demo is like, let's really jack you up so we can see things if it was the, you know, the most intense at the shortest time period.
Okay.
Okay.
So you're triggering the type A person in me again, right? So the way I look at it for this conversation is I can have a cup, and I don't drink coffee, but I can have a cup of coffee, which is potentially the 40-minute or 45-minute version, or I can have a cappuccino or a shot of espresso, rather, which could be the 10 minutes. So it would seem like there may be a preference for, I don't have enough time for 45 minutes. I have a meeting this afternoon. Can I do 10 minutes?
Part of the process is to go through the sessions, which are 45 minutes long.
Okay.
And it just helps your body integrate it.
Okay.
When you're seeing a demo, you're seeing someone who's already been through several sessions, and so they have already had the salutogenic breath and maybe the wave as well that you see in the videos.
Right.
So that's why you'll also never see them just pull someone cold.
Okay.
Because it may not be the same. It may not be that dramatic of an effect.
Sure. And when we talk about dramatic, that's what kind of takes me back to Harry Met Sally. Because you said jerks, but to me it looked like, we're all adults here, it looked like you were having some type of orgasm. Like, it did. I mean, you were flush. And not just you. So there were a couple of people that had gone through the demo, so everyone had a different experience. But ultimately, in my estimation, that's what it looked like, right? And if we use 45 minutes, right, that's what it looked like. And it seemed like there was a lot of clearing. The breath was a lot better. And so it just made you in a higher brain, it seemed like. Right? Would you agree with that?
Right. I think that when you get into the higher brain, you activate the bliss. And we're all adults here, so we'll just talk about it. I wish that I'd found the higher brain several years ago. Okay. Because I come from a background of being sexually molested as a child. So I had really cut myself off from enjoying my body. And Higher Brain Living gave that back to me. And so when you see that orgasmic, it's like you're floating, and it does feel orgasmic. It feels amazing. So it's activating that bliss part of your brain.
Wow. I have to make another disclaimer, so because you covered a subject that, you know, from a podcast standpoint, just making the disclaimer to speak with a licensed professional about some of those issues.
Yes, absolutely.
But you did mention that you did have a breakthrough, and that's huge. So someone that, unfortunately, you hear a lot more of that.
Right.
I think in 2017, there's a greater awareness of what's happening, and people of all walks of life are now coming to the surface saying this has happened. So it's also mentioned that this is baggage that they've been carrying around for their adult life, right? And they may continue to hit walls, and they don't understand why. Right, and so when you're in that lower brain, that's that monkey mind that's kind of keeping you there. And by doing higher brain living, it takes you away from that.
Right, it enables you to get past that. So instead of every time you start to have a sexual experience, you shut down. You're able to, and also, let me qualify. I've been married for 14 years. I have a very loving relationship, trusting relationship with my husband. So he knows my background, and so I think it was a natural thing, organically happened. Okay. But definitely I could say, for my own personal story, Higher Brain Living helped me get in touch with my body more than I've ever been.
Sure. Wow. Well, let me ask you, as far it's just the type A and being competitive, right? So I can't help it. So I'm just thinking from your husband, and I believe I know your husband.
Yeah, Brian.
Right. So it's kind of like keeping up with the Joneses, right? Like you right? A woman comes home, and you know you get a haircut, and that guys are supposed to know these things, like, you covered your hair, yeah, you look right. And I've noticed this change. So you come home, and I'm like, wow, babe, you look flush, you look changed. This is wow, right? I want some of that. So potentially it could be like a couples thing where couples can get into this.
Absolutely. I would recommend it for anybody doing that, because I think it just could really change the quality of your marriage, the nature of your relationship.
Wow.
Just the connectedness that you feel once you do it, too, is pretty amazing. In fact, I would go as far to say that when I was in the facilitator training, it felt like ecstasy. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but some of us have, you know, toyed with these psychedelics, and so the ecstasy makes you feel so much more connected to people. Right, and so they even say, like, don't just go off and get into a relationship because you're really open after doing this training.
Yeah.
You want to just kind of settle
sense.
down for a couple weeks.
So, as we're talking, I'm watching a video of a demo of it, and I guess they call it waving and whatnot.
Yeah.
So when you were doing your 22 sessions, how far into it before that kind of you started doing that and happening? Was that right away?
Some people have it on session 3 or 4. Some people have it on, for me, it was more like, I think I had it on 3, but then it kind of stopped, and then it picked back up around 13.
Okay.
So.
And so when that happens, it's just your body's just doing it, and you're not doing it. It's just kind of very organic. Wow.
Yeah, very organic. It's not like you're making it happen.
Right.
You're feeling it. The wave.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think if you try to force it, you might pull a muscle or something. But going back to sexuality, it seems like the wave, in my opinion, looks very serpentine, and so it looks like your kundalini is being activated.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Right. So would you okay? So what if someone has gone? If we were to compare, and we had like a kundalini activation versus a higher brain living, would you even look at that as far as complementary again, or would you look at it as, wow, I had the same feeling when I had a kundalini activation?
I would say they're complementary, and it'll be a different experience for each person. But I also do kundalini yoga.
Right.
And so it takes a lot of practice with kundalini yoga to get anywhere near what you experience with higher brain living.
Wow. So for 2017, that's good for the microwave culture, right? Because David and I were talking about different retreats, like in India, what have you, and you're with the monks, and they've been there like their whole lives to achieve that bliss. You're saying with higher brain living, you can kind of shortcut that process, potentially.
Because of the physiology.
Right.
Putting you into your prefrontal cortex, which is the area of bliss.
Okay.
And so by bypassing the lower brain, yes. You're marrying the physiology to the mental. So, yes. I hate to use the word shortcut because I hate this whole I'm just going to Google it.
Right.
I don't have to study. I'm just going to Google the answers.
Sure.
To me, that's cheating.
The reason why, I agree with you on some level, right? On some level, I agree because there traditionally has been the arduous path that I had to take, right?
Sure.
To become, and for some people that's the only way they can transition or transform to the next level. But it seems like in 2017, it seems to me that the veil is so much thinner that people are being activated a lot quicker that didn't have to go through that process maybe a generation before they had to.
That's true. And we have a lot of technology now, and we have a lot of other things. So actually probably getting people off their phone for 45 minutes is going to be the miracle in itself, right?
Yeah.
Well, I actually have to throw a dagger in that because I was with my little brother. I'm in the Big Brother, Big Sister program. And so they were at camp this week, jazz camp, right? So rubber band camp, right? And so one thing that the facilitators were saying was, these kids for the whole week did not pull out their cell phone.
Awesome.
Right, so it just seems weird because, Night of the Living, Walking Dead or whatever, because everybody, chiropractors love this because all the kids have their necks down, right? Because they're looking at their phone incessantly. But they were so engaged that they didn't look at their phones, right? And so it can happen either through something that they love or something like a higher brain living. And in the videos, and with us, we're kind of older, right? We're not teenagers or early 20s, but is there something like early 20s or teenagers? It would be like, for you to have that huge breakthrough, I'm sure there was a thought at one time like, man, I wish I had known about this 20 years prior. Right? So it's something that it's not a lot of information out there, to be honest, about higher brain living.
The best information is on the site, higherbrainliving.com.
Okay.
There's also some great videos on YouTube, like you've seen. It's really new. He's been actually working on it for about 20 years.
Okay.
But it came into fruition as what it is in 2011.
Okay.
and then he started training people in 2013, 2014. So it's revolutionary, and it's very new.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me ask you about that, because with excuse me, David, if I keep jumping.
No, go ahead.
It's not the flow right now.
I know. Go ahead.
So, well, 2011 just strikes another chord, right? Because 11/11 happened, and there was a lot of preparation for 2012, and with being psychic and some of these modalities that we talk about, a general consensus would be, whoa, what are you guys doing? That's weird. You guys are weirdos, or that's cultish, right? And so when looking at something new, there's change is very difficult for a lot of people. So just doing my little Googles and looking at trending and such, there was a lot of searches for, is this a cult, right?
Yeah.
So how do you guys overcome that resistance so that you can actually benefit from something like Higher Brain Living?
A great question. I think you have to look at the definition of what is a cult.
Okay.
And a cult requires you to give all your money to it, and it's slavish devotion. And this is not that. This is, it's a modality to make your life better. I think that there is a lot of passion and a lot of passionate people. So when you see that level of excitement, people call it it's a cult. Because then they're like, well, what is it? It's weird. Yeah, it's totally weird. It looks totally weird. I'm just going to give you that.
Sure.
And when you go and see it, you're like, whoa. So, but you have to get past that and get to the good stuff, because it really is based on science, and it really does work.
Yeah, I love it as from a homie's perspective, right? So from a guy's perspective, I think that guys should really get into it, one, because there's a ton of women that are in there, right? And then, right, selfish reasons. But the other thing is commonality, right? Because if you get into something like this, like a modality or some of these other things, it's hard to share it with someone that's not in that same frame of reference. And you, based on the podcast, you've had such breakthroughs. If someone wasn't open to that, that would probably damage the relationship, right? There would be a big chasm here. Whereas you had a huge breakthrough, and your husband was like, "Oh, I'm all for it. This is great. Keep up the good work," right?
Absolutely. That's pretty much what he said.
So now, when you do this, you don't have to have someone facilitate it when you're doing it yourself now, to yourself, right? You just know how to lay down and activate things.
And after you go through the first 22 sessions, there's actually a level 4, a tier 4, and then you can go in and even do more sessions.
Oh, okay.
So you could go on till the end of your lifetime having sessions.
Sure.
And I would recommend it. It's that good.
I wouldn't see why you would stop.
Right.
It's that good.
And the people that go to the retreat and stay with it and do more sessions, those are the people that are really, they're getting the most benefit, and they're the most passionate.
Okay.
And they're going to talk about it and be involved. We're going to go to the retreat that's in Mexico in January.
Nice. And
I signed up my husband.
Yes.
So he could share the experience.
Yes.
And I'm very excited for him.
So if I can do the math, 1 + 9 equals October, then you might have another family member in your house for anyone that goes through those retreats. You know what, baby? Why not? I think that's funny. One thing that you said as far as like a suggestion that they mentioned is to not go out and like get into a relationship or whatever because you're so open. And I remember that from psychic development as well, is that you attract a lot of dark energy, right? Because you're just shining, people are attracted to it. How have you, because for me I look at it like Christmas, if you will. Like if I got a new bike for Christmas, I'm out and I want everybody to ride the bike. Right? And, you know, there's people that are like, hell yeah, I want to ride that bike too. That's awesome, whatever. And then there's some like, screw you. Why are you weirdo? Have you been able, because there isn't enough information about it for us to talk about it, I think that we're kind of getting the word out there. But I'm just looking at what have you found in your own experience as introducing different people to it?
You know, there's some people that look at it and go, well, this is not for me. I mean, I think it's important to look at the videos and then look at go to a live demo and hear people's testimonial. I think the most powerful thing is to hear people's testimonials about how it's changed their lives. And that really makes a difference. And people are interested from that point. I just want everyone to get Higher Brain Living. I don't care where you go. I mean, there's a lot of people that do it. Leslie Clayton is doing it at her Pilates studio. Debbie is doing it, and she's listed on the website. I'm going to get listed on the website as an advanced facilitator as well. So, you know, you can go to the site and you can see all the facilitators that are listed in every state.
Awesome.
And call them and go from there.
Oh, that's fantastic. One thing that I did notice in the demo is, you know, you guys have a deal or whatever afterwards, and it was more of check out 2 sessions to see if it's right for you to continue, because what I've seen in business, and I'm sure everybody in all walks of life, is levels of commitment, right? And they're like, this is something else I need, you know, I got to feed the babies after sitting in traffic after working 14 hours a day. How am I going to fit in 22 sessions? And you actually did it. I mean, you have children and married and worked a full corporate job. How were you, was it just because of the dedication that you wanted more of that experience? Or I'm just trying to make it so that everyone makes it or would find it easy to obtain those 22 sessions?
Well, first of all, you have to find a facilitator that you kind of have a good feel for, I think. And then for me, it was pretty easy. I got lucky. Anne is sort of on my way home from work. So I would just, and I think that you make time for what's important to you.
Absolutely.
So if you are committed to the process, you're going to make time for it. I've known people that have driven an hour and a half to get to a facilitator. So it's about your level of commitment to do it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Real quick, I knew someone who, she lived in Alaska, and she was doing the clairvoyant program at Psychic Horizons in Boulder, and what she would do is she would fly down to Boulder and spend like 3 weeks there, and then she'd fly back, and then she'd be home for a few months. So she'd fly in like 4 times a year or something like that to do, she was doing stuff up there, but a lot of the training, she would fly in from Alaska, and her family was all on board with it. Fly in, do her, that's how committed she was. She'd fly in from Alaska all the way to Colorado for a few weeks for like, you know, a year or whatever it was, just because she wanted that information and that kind of training.
Right. So you find time for what's important.
Now, when you have that commitment, like you're driving an hour to get there, what have you, I just know from personal experience from like getting a massage or reflexology, they always give you water afterwards, and they tell you, you know, don't jump right in the car immediately because, you know, you got to adjust. Would you suggest the same thing as far as after a session? Do you, you know, can you jump right back in the car and get back into traffic? Or would you suggest that it's gradual, like you should sit at your location for like 30 extra minutes or what have you?
Usually you come, it's done on a massage table. So once your session is over, I would say give yourself like 5 minutes to kind of come back to the real world. But then you're good to drive, I mean,
you're good to go.
You're in your higher brain.
Sure. Yeah, I didn't think it was weird. I just know, like, even if we use Horizon as an example, for the energy healings that people came in, they brought so much energy from sitting in traffic and what happened for the day. They get the clearing, and then, they're good for, you know, until they come back for another energy healing. So I'm just trying to marry the two. So that sounds about right. So in the tradition of you're continuing to learn, is it leading you to other directions, or do you feel that Higher Brain Living's where you're going to stay right now, and then you're just open to where it's going to lead you? Where do you see as far as Crystal a year from now, after the Mexico trip, of course, and the baby?
Well, I'm definitely committed to being a Higher Brain Living advanced facilitator, and I'd like to continue with that, continue facilitating people, and we'll see where it goes. I kind of see myself maybe traveling to do demos, maybe North Carolina or Asheville. Seems like it would be a great market, but I don't think there's a lot of facilitators there. So, I don't know. And we'll see. He's also going to have, Dr. Cotton is starting the yoga thing. So it'll be bringing Higher Brain Living to yoga studios.
Okay.
And that's open to advanced facilitators as well. So I definitely want to do that, too, when they get that going.
Okay.
And so that would be like facilitating 12 to 13 people all at the same time.
Right.
And then they're doing the yoga.
Okay.
So they do it before, and then they do the yoga, do
right.
the activity, okay.
And so I'm excited, really excited about that, because that'll be like more people experiencing it and really, to really integrate it in your body, too, to do the yoga afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems like it'd be interesting doing that and then doing some deep meditation afterwards. That would be like, wow.
Yes.
And it seems like Flintstone vitamins, if you will, right? Like you're taking something that, like a yoga, I'm familiar with it, and then I'm introduced to a Higher Brain Living, as opposed to being cold and, oh, what is this Higher Brain Living, right? So I take the Flintstone vitamin, which is meditation, yoga, Pilates. Oh, by the way, you want more out of this, you want to check in the Higher Brain Living.
And I think that today's individual in 2017 is really interested in spirituality, but they are not interested in a traditional church or anything like that. So this is a way to get to your higher self, if you will, and to experience that bliss. And, you know, it's a higher power, you know, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And so people can connect to that and have that experience, and they don't have to do it in this traditional way.
Right. Awesome. Now, you mentioned on the site, it's higherbrainliving.com, correct? But there's also Leslie's information where your information is going to be, so I wanted you to leave those type of contact information. I didn't know they're specifically reaching you three, either Leslie, you, or Debbie.
Right.
So they don't have to go through I mean, they can ultimately go through the site to get more information, but for someone here in Atlanta locally, if you want to get that information, that'd be great.
Yeah, we have my information, and also Leslie Clayton, and her Pilates studio is called the Body Awareness Pilates Studio, and it's right next to Phoenix and Dragon, so you can go there. And then the next demo that we're going to have, the next live Higher Brain Living demo, will be on July 6th at 7 p.m., and that's at the Phoenix and Dragon bookstore, and Leslie and Debbie and myself will probably all be there.
Awesome. Just one last thing in closing. So for swimming, right, you can't go swimming for 40 minutes after you've eaten, right? Is there any prerequisites before? I mean, they're going to see a demo, so they're not going to be a part of it, but is there any recommendation of not eating or something before you go through Higher Brain Living?
No. Okay. Doesn't matter.
Okay. So you can party on Saturday night and get Higher Brain Living on Sunday morning. Take over your hangover.
I wouldn't recommend it, but you could.
Yeah.
Sure. It's probably harder. You probably wouldn't get as much out of it. So, great. Well, I really loved having you here and learning more about it, and hopefully we can get the word out for Higher Brain Living. And is there anything else you'd like to say in closing?
Just that if you are interested, please come check out the demo on July 6th at 7 o'clock at Phoenix and Dragon, and let us know that you heard us on the podcast.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Great.
Well, thanks again. We had Crystal Lentjes with Higher Brain Living at higherbrainliving.com, and the information that she left before. We'll leave that contact information in the description as well. And again, I definitely enjoyed this, and we'll keep it moving. So from intrinsic motivation from a homie's perspective, I am Hamza.
I'm David.
And we'll see you next podcast.
Peace out.
Peace.